My name is Robert Pearce, and I often receive telephone calls from financial advisors that were recruited by brokerage firms with the lure of upfront bonuses based upon the production at the prior firm. And now years later, they want to leave that firm, or they do leave the firm, and they receive lawsuits to collect on the amount of the bonus, sometimes all of the bonus, sometimes only a portion of it. It seems that the basis for those suits are that when the broker signed up with the new firm, they signed agreements, employment agreements with bonuses and repayment provisions, or they signed separate forgivable loan agreements, or they signed separate bonus agreements and separate promissory notes. The idea was to have the brokers sign these agreements and deter them from leaving the firm in the future, at least for a period of time. Today, the general term is 6 to 8 years. These agreements are generally prorated annually or quarterly or monthly, meaning that the longer you stay, the less money you owe. The recent trend is to use promissory notes and bonus agreements. The idea being that if you sign two separate agreements, a bonus agreement, for example, where you receive the bonus and a portion of that bonus is going to, you're going to receive full vesting to at year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. When you stop your employment with that firm, they're no longer obligated to pay you the bonus. But the promissory note is still in full force and effect. And that's an easy agreement to enforce. Well, it's like a check. All you have to say is, here's the promissory note, Judge. They agreed to pay X number of dollars. They stopped paying. It's a simple action to enforce in arbitration, and most brokers lose on these promissory note agreements. So the only way, in my experience, for you to be able to avoid repaying an employer on a employment agreement, a forgivable loan agreement, or a promissory note is to have a separate claim against the brokerage firm. Hopefully, when you leave the firm and you identify the claim that you have and it's a strong claim, what you do is you file the arbitration claim against the brokerage firm first. You become the claimant. You get procedural rights. You have a little bit more credibility than being sued by the brokerage firm on the note and then suddenly coming up with a defense or a counterclaim. That doesn't mean you can't do that, but the preference is to be the first to file. Now, in my experience, these counterclaims don't have much success, and I've seen brokers come into my office and say, well, you know, we were promised something, we were defrauded when we signed up with the brokerage firm, the recruiting broker, and they never delivered. They promised us leads, they promised us an assistant, they promised me a large office, they said that we'll get all your clients transferred to the firm in no time, don't worry. And then they failed to do that. The problem with those types of claims is that, you know, brokers just don't pack up and leave one firm as soon as they signed up. And you would generally know what those problems are very quickly. And they may leave a year or 2 or 3 years later, and then when they get to the arbitration, the arbitrators say, if these things were so terrible, why didn't you leave earlier? Why didn't you leave immediately? They don't consider the fact that it's difficult to leave firms and transfer your clients, but that's the way it is. So again, you know, what you need to do is you need to come up with a strong claim to set off that promissory note or that bonus agreement or that forgivable loan or that employment agreement. And my experience, the strong cases are where the broker, prior to his employment, has in writing, either in the form of correspondence or emails, false promises, or promises that were simply not fulfilled, maybe a claim for fraud, and that the broker acts on that claim for fraud. I'm talking about within a year, generally, of joining the new firm. There are post-termination defamation claims, so that can constitute a good set-off claim. So a broker leaves the firm, he owes money, and as soon as he leaves the firm, the brokers at the departing firm and the sales assistants are on the line with his best customers telling all sorts of lies about that broker, lies that may be even sent by email. The problem with those cases is you really need something in writing, and on top of that, you really need your customer to say that, listen, if they hadn't said these things, I would have transferred my account. And usually the customer won't say that unless he's had difficulties with that firm after you left. There are other ways that you can make set-off claims. They're very difficult, but they're not impossible. Usually the better course, I find, in these situations is to try to renegotiate with the brokerage firm that you just left the terms of the promissory note. Maybe make them less onerous, extend the time period. You might even be able to negotiate a reduction in the amount owed by making a lump sum payment. Or if you're really on the verge of bankruptcy, making that known to the employer. That will sometimes influence them in the renegotiation process. Either way, these are difficult negotiations, and you need a good FINRA defense attorney to help you.